Marty, 1953. Directed by Delbert Mann. Associate producer Gordon Duff. Produced by Fred Coe. Cast: Marty's played by Rod Steiger, Clara by Nancy Marchand. Act 1. Fade in. A butcher's shop in the Italian district of New York City. Actually, we fade in on a close-up of a butcher's saw being carefully worked through a side of beef, and we dolly back to show the butcher at work and then the whole shop. The butcher is a mild-mannered, stout, short, balding young man of 36. His charm lies in an almost indestructible good-natured amiability. The shop contains 3 women customers. One is a young mother with a baby carriage. She is chatting with a second woman of about 40 at the door. The customer being waited on at the moment is a stout, elderly Italian woman who is standing on tiptoe, peering over the white display counter, checking the butcher as he saws away. The Italian woman. Your kid brother got married last Sunday, eh, Marty? Marty, absorbed in his work. That's right, Mrs. Vasari. It was a very nice affair. The Italian woman. That's the big tall one, the fellow with the mustache. Marty, sawing away. No, that's my older brother, Freddie. My other brother, Freddie, he's been married 4 years already. He lives down on Quincy Street. The one who got married Sunday, that was my little brother, Nicky. The Italian woman. I thought he was a big, tall, fat fellow. Didn't I meet him here one time? Big, tall, fat fellow, he tried to sell me life insurance? Marty. Sets the cut of meat on the scale, watches its weight register. No, that's my sister Margaret's husband, Frank. My sister Margaret, she's married to a salesman. My sister Rose, she married a contractor. They moved to Detroit last year. And my other sister, Frances, she got married about 2.5 years ago in St. John's Church on Adams Boulevard. Oh, that was a big affair. Well, Mrs. Fusari, that'll be $3.94. How's that with you? The Italian woman produces an old leather change purse from her pocketbook and painfully extracts 3 single-dollar bills into 94 cents to the penny and lays the money piece by piece on the counter. The young mother calling from the door. Hey, Marty, I'm in a hurry. Marty, wrapping the meat, calls amiably back. You're next right now, Mrs. Canduso. The old Italian lady has been regarding Marty with a baleful scowl. The Italian woman. Marty, when are you going to get married? You should be ashamed. All your brothers and sisters, they all younger than you, and they married. And they got children. I just saw your mother in a fruit shop, and she says to me, hey, you know a nice girl for my boy Marty? What's the matter with you? That's no way. What's the matter with you? Now you get married. You hear me what I say? Marty, amiably. I hear you, Mrs. Fusari. The old lady takes her parcel of meat, but apparently feels she still hasn't quite made her point. The Italian woman. My son Frank. He was married when he was 19 years old. What's the matter with you? Marty. Mrs. Fusari, Mrs. Canduso over there, she's in a big hurry, and the Italian woman. You be ashamed of yourself. She takes her package of meat, turns and shuffles to the door and exits. Marty gathers up the money on the counter, turns to the cash register behind him to ring up the scale. The young mother. Marty, I want a nice big fat pullet, about 4 pounds. I hear your kid brother got married last Sunday. Marty. Yeah, it was a nice affair, Mrs. Canduso. The young mother. Marty, you ought to be ashamed. All your kid brothers and sisters married and have children? When are you going to get married? Close up Marty. He sends a glance of weary exasperation up to the ceiling, with a gesture of mild irritation. He pushes the plunger of the cash register. It makes a sharp ping. Dissolve 2, close-up of television set. A baseball game is in progress. Camera pulls back to show we are in a typical neighborhood bar. Red leatherette booze, a jukebox, some phone booze. About half the bar stools are occupied by neighborhood folk. Marty enters, pads amiably to one of the booths where a young man of about 30-odd sits. This is Angie. Marty slides into the booth across from Angie. Angie is a little wasp of a fellow. He has a newspaper spread out before him to the sports pages. Marty reaches over and pulls one of the pages over for himself to read. For a moment, the two friends sit across from each other reading the sports pages. Then Angie, without looking up, speaks. Angie, what do you feel like doing tonight? Marty, I don't know, Angie. What do you feel like doing? Angie, well, we ought to do something. It's Saturday night. I don't want to go bowling like last Saturday. How about calling up that big girl we picked up in a movies about a month ago in the RKO Chester? Marty, not very interested. Which one was that? Angie, that big girl that was sitting in front of us with the skinny friend. Marty, oh yeah. Angie, we took them home all the way out in Brooklyn. Her name was Mary Feeney. What do you say? You think I ought to give her a ring? I'll take the skinny one. Marty, it's 5 o'clock already, Angie. She probably got a date by now. Angie, well, let's call her up. What can we lose? Marty, I didn't like her, Angie. I don't feel like calling her up. Angie, well, what do you feel like doing tonight? Marty, I don't know. What do you feel like doing? Angie, well, we're back to that, huh? I say to you, what do you feel like doing tonight? And you say to me, I don't know. What do you feel like doing? And then we wind up sitting around your house with a couple of cans of beer watching Sid Caesar on television. Well, I tell you what I feel like doing. I feel like calling up this Mary Feeney. She likes you. Marty looks up quickly at this. Marty, what makes you say that? Angie, I can see she likes you. Marty, yeah, sure. Angie, half rising in his seat. I'll call her up. Marty, you call her up for yourself, Angie. I don't feel like calling her up. Angie sits down again. They both return to reading the paper for a moment. And Angie looks up again. Angie, boy, you're getting to be a real drag, you know that? Marty, Angie, I'm 36 years old. I've been looking for a girl every Saturday night of my life. I'm a little, short, fat fellow, and girls don't go for me. That's all. I'm not like you. I mean, you joke around and they laugh at you and you get along fine. I just stand around like a bug. What's the sense of kidding myself? Everybody's always telling me to get married. Get married. Get married. Don't you think I want to get married? I want to get married. They drive me crazy. Now I don't want to wreck your Saturday night for you, Angie. You want to go somewhere, you go ahead. I don't want to go. Angie. Boy, they drive me crazy too. My old lady, every word out of her mouth. When are you going to get married? Marty. My mother. Boy, she drives me crazy. Angie leans back in his seat, scowls at the paper napkin container. Marty returns to the sports page. For a moment, a silence hangs between them. Then, Angie. So what do you feel like doing tonight? Marty, without looking up. I don't know. What do you feel like doing? They both just sit. Angie frowning at the napkin container, Marty at the sports page. The camera slowly moves away from the booth, looks down the length of the bar, up the wall past the clock, which reads 10 to 5, and over to the television screen where the baseball game is still going on. Dissolve slowly to the television screen, now blank. The clock reads 5:45. Back in the booth, Marty now sits alone. In front of him are 3 empty beer bottles and a beer glass half filled. He is sitting there, his face expressionless, but his eyes troubled. Then he pushes himself slowly out of the booth and shuffles to the phone booth. He goes inside, closing the booth door carefully after him. For a moment, Marty just sits squatly. Then, with some exertion, due to the cramped quarters, he contrives to get a small address book out of his rear pants pocket. He slowly flips through it, finds the page he wants, and studies it, scowling. Then he takes a dime from the change he has just received, plunks it into the proper slot, waits for a dial tone, then carefully dials a number. He waits. He is beginning to sweat a bit in the hot little booth, and his chest begins to rise and fall deeply. Marty, with a vague pretense at good diction. Hello? Is this Mary Feeney? Could I speak to Miss Mary Feeney? Just tell her an old friend. He waits again. With his free hand, he wipes the gathering sweat from his brow. Oh, hello there. Is this Mary Feeney? Hello there. This is Marty Paletti. I wonder if you recall me. Well, I'm kind of a stocky guy. The last time we met was in a movies, the RKO Chester. You was with another girl, and I was with a friend of mine named Angie. This was about a month ago. The girl apparently doesn't remember him. A sort of panic begins to seize Marty. His voice rises a little. The RKO Chester on Payne Boulevard. You was sitting in front of us, and we was annoying you, and you got mad, and I'm the fellow who works in the butcher shop. Come on, you know who I am. That's right. We went to Howard Johnson's, and we had hamburgers. You had a milkshake. Yeah, that's right. I'm the stocky one, the heavy-set fellow. Well, I'm glad you recall me, because I had a swell time that night, and I was just wondering how everything was with you. How's everything? That's swell. Yeah, well, I'll tell you why I called. I was figuring on taking in a movie tonight, and I was wondering if you and your friend would care to see a movie tonight with me and my friend. His eyes are closed now. Yeah, tonight. I know it's pretty late to call for a date, but I didn't know myself till... Yeah, I know. Well, how about... Yeah, I know. Well, maybe next Saturday night. You free next Saturday night? Well, how about the Saturday after that? Yeah, I know. Yeah? Yeah? Oh. I understand. I mean... He just sits now, his eyes closed, not really listening. After a moment, he returns the receiver to its cradle and sits, his shoulders slack, his hands resting listlessly in the lap of his spotted white apron. Then he opens his eyes, straightens himself, pushes the booth door open, and advances out into the bar. He perches on a stool across from the bar from the bartender, who looks up from his magazine. The bartender. I hear your kid brother got married last week, Marty. Marty, looking down at his hands on the bar. Yeah, it was a very nice affair. The bartender. Well, Marty, when are you going to get married? Marty tenders the bartender a quick scowl, gets off his perch, and starts for the door, untying his apron as he goes. Marty. If my mother calls up Lou, tell her I'm on my way home. Dissolved to Marty's mother, and a young couple sitting around the table in the dining room of Marty's home. The young couple, we will soon find out, are Thomas, Marty's cousin, and his wife Virginia. They have apparently just been telling the mother some sad news, and the three are sitting around frowning. The dining room is a crowded room filled with chairs and lamps, pictures and little statues, perhaps even a small grotto of little vigil lamps. To the right of the dining room is the kitchen, old-fashioned, Italian, steaming, and overcrowded. To the left of the dining room is the living room, furnished in the same fashion as the dining room. Just off the living room is a small bedroom, which is Marty's. This bedroom and the living room have windows looking out on front. The dining room has windows looking out to side alleyway. A stairway in the dining room leads to the second floor. The mother is a round, dark, effusive little woman. The mother, after a pause. Well, Thomas, I knew sooner or later this was going to happen. I told Marty, I said, Marty, you watch. There's going to be real trouble over there in your cousin Thomas's house. Because your mother was here, Thomas, you know? Thomas. When was this? Aunt Teresa? The mother. This one was one, 2, 3 days ago. Wednesday. Because I went to the fruit shop on Wednesday and I came home. And I come around back and there's your mother sitting on a steps on a porch. And I said, Catherine, my sister, what are you doing here? And she looked up at me and she began to cry. Thomas, to his wife. Wednesday. That was the day you threw the milk bottle. The mother. That's right. Because I said to her, Catherine, what's the matter? And she said to me, Teresa, my daughter-in-law, Virginia, just threw the milk bottle at me. Virginia. Well, you see what happened, Aunt Teresa. The mother. I know. Virginia. She comes in a kitchen and begins poking her head over my shoulder here and poking her head over my shoulder there. The mother. I know. Virginia. And she begins complaining about this and she begins complaining about that. She got me so nervous I spilled some milk I was making for the baby. You see, I was making some food for the baby. And the mother. So I said to her, Catherine. Virginia. So she got me so nervous I spilled some milk. So she said, you're spilling the milk. She says, milk costs 24 cents a bottle. What are you, a banker? So I said, Mama, leave me alone, please. You're making me nervous. Go on in the other room and turn on the television set. So then she began telling me how I waste money and how I can't cook and how I'm raising my baby all wrong. And she kept talking about these couple of drops of milk I spilled. And I got so mad. I said, Mama, you want to see me really spill some milk? So I took the bottle and threw it against the door. I didn't throw it at her. That's just something she made up. I didn't throw it anywhere near her. Well, of course, all the milk went all over the floor. The whole 24 cents. Well, I was sorry right away, but she ran out of the house. Pause. The mother. Well, I don't know what you want me to do, Virginia. If you want me, I'll go talk to her tonight. Thomas and Virginia suddenly frowned and looked down at their hands as if of one mind. Thomas. Well, I'll tell you, Aunt Teresa. Virginia. Let me tell it, Tommy. Thomas. Okay. Virginia. Leaning forward to the mother. We want you to do a very big favor for us, Aunt Teresa. The mother. Sure. Virginia. Aunt Teresa, you got this big house here. You got 4 bedrooms upstairs. I mean, you got this big house just for you and Marty. All your other kids are married and got their own homes. And I thought maybe Tommy's mother could come here and live with you and Marty. The mother. Well, Virginia, she's miserable living with Tommy and me, and you're the only one that gets along with her. Because I called up Tommy's brother Joe and I said, Joe, she's driving me crazy. Why don't you take her for a couple of years? And he said, oh no. I know I sound like a terrible woman. The mother. No, Virginia, I know how you feel. My husband, may God bless his memory, his mother, she lived with us for a long time, and I know how you feel. Virginia, practically on the verge of tears. I just can't stand it no more. Every minute of the day. Do this, do that. I don't have 10 minutes alone with my husband. We can't even have no privacy. Everybody's miserable in our house. Thomas. All right, Jenny. Don't get so excited. The mother. She's right. Young husband and wife, they should have their own home. And my sister, Catherine, she's my sister, but I got to admit she's an old goat. And plenty of times in my life, I feel like throwing the milk bottle at her myself. And I'll tell you now, as far as I'm concerned, if Catherine wants to come live here with me and Marty, it's all right with me. Virginia promptly bursts into tears. Thomas, not far from tears himself, lowers his face. That's very nice of you, Aunt Teresa. The mother. We got to ask Marty, of course, because this is his house too. But he's going to come home any minute now. Virginia, having mastered her tears. That's very nice of you, Aunt Teresa. The mother, rising. And you just sit here. I'm going to turn on a small fire under the food. She exits into the kitchen. Virginia calling after her. We got to go right away because I promised the babysitter we'd be home by 6, and it's after 6 now. She kind of fades out. A moment of silence. Thomas takes out a cigarette and lights it. Thomas calling to his aunt in the kitchen. How's Marty been lately, Aunt Teresa? The mother off in kitchen. Oh, he's fine. You know a nice girl he can marry? She comes back into the dining room, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. I'm worried about him, you know. He's 36 years old, going to be 37 in January. Thomas. Oh, he'll get married. Don't worry, Aunt Teresa. The mother, sitting down again. Well, I don't know. You know a place where he can go where he can find a bride? Thomas. The Waverly Ballroom. That's a good place to meet girls, Aunt Teresa. That's a kind of big dance hall, Aunt Teresa. Every Saturday night, it's just loaded with girls. It's a nice place to go. You pay 77 cents. It used to be 77 cents. It must be about $1.50 now. And you go in and you ask some nice girl to dance, or some girl to dance. That's how I met Virginia. Nice, respectable place to meet girls. You tell Marty, Aunt Teresa, you tell him, go to the Waverly Ballroom. It's loaded with tomatoes. The mother, committing the line to memory. The Waverly Ballroom, it's loaded with tomatoes. Thomas. Right. Virginia. You tell him, go to the Waverly Ballroom. There is the sound of a door being unlatched off through the kitchen. The mother promptly rises. The mother. He's here. She hurries into the kitchen. At the porch entrance to the kitchen, Marty has just come in. He is closing the door behind him. He carries his butcher's apron and a bundle under his arm. Marty. Hello, Ma. She comes up to him, lowers her voice to a whisper. The mother whispers. Marty, Thomas and Virginia are here. They had another big fight with your Aunt Catherine. So they asked me, would it be all right if Catherine come to live with us? So I said, all right with me, but we have to ask you. Marty, she's a lonely old lady. Nobody wants her. Everybody's throwing her out of their house. Marty. Sure, Ma, it's okay with me. The mother's face breaks into a fond smile. She reaches up and pats his cheek with genuine affection. The mother. You got a good heart. Turning and leading the way back to the dining room, Thomas has risen. He says, okay, it's all right, Catherine comes here. Thomas. Oh, Marty, thanks a lot. That really takes a load off of my mind. Marty. Well, we got plenty of room here. The mother. Sure, it's going to be nice. It's going to be nice. I'll come over tonight to your house and I'll talk to Catherine, and you see, everything is going to work out all right. Thomas. I just want to thank you people again because the situation was just becoming impossible. The mother. Sit down, Thomas, sit down. All right, Marty, sit down. She exits into the kitchen. Marty has taken his seat at the head of the table and is waiting to be served. Thomas takes a seat around the corner of the table from him and leans across to him. Thomas. You see, Marty, the kind of thing that's been happening in our house is Virginia was in the kitchen making some food for the baby. Well, my mother comes in and gets Virginia so nervous she spills a couple of drops. Virginia, tugging at her husband. Tommy, we gotta go. I promised the babysitter 6 o'clock. Thomas, rising without interrupting his narrative. So she starts yelling at Virginia, what are you spilling the milk for? So Virginia gets mad. His wife is slowly pulling him to the kitchen door. She says, you want to really see me spill milk? So Virginia takes the bottle and she throws it against the wall. She's got a real temper, my wife. You know that. He has been tugged to the kitchen door by now. Virginia. Marty, I don't have to tell you how much we appreciate what your mother and you are doing for us. Thomas. All right, Marty. I'll see you some other time. I'll tell you all about it. Marty. I'll see you, Tommy. Thomas disappears into the kitchen after his wife. Virginia. Off. calling. Goodbye, Marty. Close in on Marty sitting at the table. Marty. Goodbye, Virginia. See you soon. He folds his hands on the table before him and waits to be served. The mother enters from the kitchen. She sets the meat plate down in front of him and herself takes a chair around the corner of the table from him. Marty, without a word, takes up his knife and fork and attacks the mountain of food in front of him. His mother sits quietly, her hands a little nervous on the table before her, watching him eat. Then, the mother. So what are you going to do tonight, Marty? Marty. I don't know, Ma. I'm all knocked out. I may just hang around the house. The mother nods a couple of times. There's a moment of silence. Then, the mother. Why don't you go to the Waverly Ballroom? This gives Marty pause. He looks up. Marty. What? The mother. I say, why don't you go to the Waverly Ballroom? It's loaded with tomatoes. Marty regards his mother for a moment. Marty. It's loaded with what? Mother. Tomatoes. Marty snorts. Who told you about the Waverly Ballroom? The mother. Thomas. He told me it was a very nice place. Marty. Oh, Thomas. Ma, it's just a big dance hall, and that's all it is. I've been there 100 times. Loaded with tomatoes. Boy, you're funny, Ma. The mother. Marty, I don't want you hanging around the house tonight. I want you to go take a shave and go out and dance. Marty. Ma, when are you gonna give up? You got a bachelor on your hands. I ain't never gonna get married. The mother. You gonna get married? Marty. Sooner or later, there comes a point in a man's life when he's got to face some facts. And one fact I got to face is that whatever it is that women like, I ain't got it. I chased enough girls in my life. I went to enough dances. I got hurt enough. I don't want to get hurt no more. I just called a girl this afternoon and I got a real brush off, boy. I figured I was past the point of being hurt, but that hurt. Some stupid woman who I didn't even want to call up. She gave me the brush. That's the history of my life. I don't want to go to the Waverly Ballroom because all that ever happened to me there was girls made me feel like I was a bug. I got feelings, you know? I had enough pain. No thank you. The mother. Marty. Ma, I'm gonna stay home and watch Sid Caesar. The mother. You gonna die without a son. Marty. So I'll die without a son. The mother. Put on your blue suit. Marty. Blue suit, gray suit. I'm still a fat little man. A fat little ugly man. The mother. You're not ugly. Marty, his voice rising. I'm ugly. I'm ugly. I'm ugly. The mother. Marty. Marty, crying aloud, more in anguish than in anger. Ma, leave me alone. He stands abruptly, his face pained and drawn. He makes half-formed gestures to his mother, but he can't find words at the moment. He turns and marches a few paces away, turns to his mother again. Marty. Ma, what do you want from me? What do you want from me? I'm miserable enough as it is. Leave me alone. I'll go to the Waverly Ballroom, I'll put on a blue suit and I'll go. And you know what I'm going to get for my trouble? Heartache. A big night of heartache. He sullenly marches back to his seat, sits down, picks up his fork, plunges it into the lasagna and stuffs a mouthful into his mouth. He chews vigorously for a moment. It is impossible to remain angry for long. After a while, he is shaking his head and muttering, Marty. Loaded with tomatoes. Boy, that's rich. He plunges his fork in again. The camera pulls slowly away from him and his mother, who is seated, watching him. Fade out. Act 2. Fade in. Exterior 3-story building. Pan up to the second floor, bright neon lights reading Waverly. The large, dirty windows are open, and the sound of a fair to middling swing band whooping it up comes out. Dissolved to interior Waverly Ballroom. Large dance floor crowded with jitterbugging couples, 8-piece combination hitting with a loud kick. Ballroom is vaguely dark, made so by paper mache over the chandeliers to create alleged romantic effect. The walls are lined with stags and waiting girls, singly and in small murmuring groups. Noise and mumble and drone. Dissolve to live shot, a row of stags along the wall. Camera is looking lengthwise down the row. Camera dollies slowly past each face, each staring out at the dance floor, watching in his own manner of hungry eagerness. Short, fat, tall, thin stags. Some pretend diffidence. Some exhibit patent hunger. Near the end of the line, we find Marty and Angie, freshly shaved and groomed. They are leaning against the wall, smoking, watching their more fortunate brethren out on the floor. Angie. Not a bad crowd tonight, you know? Marty. There was one nice-looking one there in the black dress and beads, but she was a little tall for me. Angie. Looking down past Marty along the wall right into the camera. There's a nice-looking little short one for you right now. Marty, following his gaze. Where? Angie. Down there, that little one there. The camera cuts about 8 faces down to where the girls are now standing. 2 are against the wall. 1 is facing them with her back to the dance floor. The last one is the one Angie has in mind. She is a cute little kid, about 20, and she has a bright smile on, as if the other 2 girls are just amusing her to death. Marty. Yeah, she looks all right from here. Angie. We'll go on over and ask her. You don't hurry up, somebody else will grab her. Marty scowls, shrugs. Marty. Okay, let's go. They slouch along past the 8 stags, a picture of nonchalant unconcern. The 3 girls, aware of their approach, stiffen, and their chatter comes to a halt. Angie advances to one of the girls along the wall. Angie. What do you say? You want to dance? The girl looks surprised, as if this were an extraordinary invitation to receive in this place. Looks confounded at her 2 friends, shrugs, detaches herself from the group, moves to the outer fringe of the pack of dancers, raises her hand languidly to dancing position, and awaits Angie with ineffable boredom. Marty, smiling shyly, addresses the short girl. Marty. Excuse me, would you care for this dance? The short girl gives Marty a quick glance of appraisal, looks quickly at her remaining friend. The short girl, not pleasantly. Sorry, I just don't feel like dancing just yet. Marty. Sure. He turns and moves back past the 8 stags, all of whom have covertly watched his attempt. He finds his old niche by the wall, leans there. A moment later, he looks guardedly down to where the short girl and her friend are. A young, dapper boy is approaching the short girl. He asks her to dance. The short girl smiles, excuses herself to her friend, and follows the boy out onto the floor. Marty turns back to watching the dancers bleakly. A moment later, he is aware that someone on his right is talking to him. He turns his head. It is a young man of about 28. Marty. You say something to me? The young man. Yeah, I was just asking you if you was here stag or with a girl. Marty. I'm stag. The young man. Well, I'll tell you. I got stuck on a blind date with a dog, and I just picked up a nice chick, and I was wondering how I'm going to get rid of the dog. Somebody to take her home, you know what I mean? I'd be glad to pay you $5 if you take the dog home for me. Marty, a little confused. What? The young man. I'll take you over. and I'll introduce you as an old army buddy of mine, and then I'll cut out. Because I got this chick waiting for me out by that hat check, and I'll pay you $5. Marty stares at the young man. Are you kidding? The young man. No, I'm not kidding. Marty. You can't just walk off on a girl like that. The young man grimaces impatiently and moves down the line of stags. Marty watches him, still a little shocked at the proposition. About 2 stags down, the young man broaches his plan to another stag. This stag, frowning and pursing his lips, seems more receptive to the idea. The young man takes out a wallet and gives the stag a $5 bill. The stag detaches himself from the wall and, a little ill at ease, follows the young man back past Marty and into the lounge. Marty pauses a moment and then, concerned, walks to the archway that separates the lounge from the ballroom and looks in. The lounge is a narrow room with a bar and booze. In contrast to the ballroom, it is brightly lighted, causing Marty to squint. In the second booth from the archway sits a girl about 28. Despite the careful grooming that she has put into her cosmetics, she is blatantly plain. The young man and the stag are standing, talking to her. She is looking up at the young man, her hands nervously gripping her Coca-Cola glass. We cannot hear what the young man is saying, but it is apparent that he is introducing his newfound army buddy and is going through some cock and bull story about being called away on an emergency. The stag is presented as her escort-to-be, who will see to it that she gets home safely. The girl apparently is not taken in at all by this, though she is trying hard not to seem affected. She politely rejects the stag's company and will get home by herself. Thanks for asking anyway. The young man makes a few mild protestations, and then he and the stag leave the booth and come back to the archway from where Marty has been watching the scene. As they pass Marty, we overhear a snatch of dialogue. The young man. In that case, as long as she's going home alone, give me that $5 back. The stag. Look, Mac, you paid me $5. I was willing. It's my $5. They pass on. Marty returns his attention to the girl. She is still sitting as she was, gripping and ungripping the glass of Coca-Cola in front of her. Her eyes are closed. Then, with a little nervous shake of her head, she gets out of the booth and stands, momentarily at a loss for what to do next. The open fire doors leading out onto the large fire escape catch her eye. She crosses to the fire escape, nervous, frowning, and disappears outside. Marty stares after her, then slowly shuffles to the open fire escape doorway. It is a large fire escape, almost the size of a small balcony. The girl is standing by the railing, her back to the doorway, her head slunk down on her bosom. For a moment, Marty is unaware that she is crying. Then he notices the shivering tremors running through her body and the quivering shoulders. He moves a step onto the fire escape. He tries to think of something to say. Marty. Excuse me, miss, would you care to dance? The girl slowly turns to him, her face streaked with tears, her lip trembling. Then, in one of those peculiar moments of simultaneous impulse, she lurches to Marty with a sob, and Marty takes her to him. For a moment, they stand in an awkward embrace, Marty a little embarrassed, looking out through the doors to the lounge, wondering if anybody is seeing them. Reaching back with one hand, he closes the fire doors, and then, replacing the hand around her shoulder, he stands stiffly, allowing her to cry on his chest. Dissolve to exterior apartment door. The mother is standing in a black coat and a hat with a little feather, waiting for her ring to be answered. The door opens. Virginia stands framed in the doorway. Virginia. Hello, Aunt Teresa, come in. The mother goes into the small foyer. Virginia closes the door. The mother. in a low voice as she pulls her coat off. Is Catherine here? Virginia helps her off with coat, nods, also in a low voice. We didn't tell her nothing yet. We thought we'd leave it to you. We thought you'd put it like how you were lonely and why don't she come to live with you? Because that way it looks like she's doing you a favor instead of we're throwing her out and it won't be so cruel on her. Thomas is downstairs with the neighbors. I'll go call him. The mother. You go downstairs to the neighbors and stay here with Thomas. Virginia. Wouldn't it be better if we were here? The mother. You go downstairs. I talked to Catherine alone. Otherwise, she's going to start a fight with you. A shrill, imperious woman's voice from an off-stage room suddenly breaks into a muttered conference in the foyer. The aunt. Off. Who's there? Who's there? The mother heads up the foyer to the living room, followed by Virginia holding the mother's coat. The mother calls back. It's me, Catherine. How do you feel? At the end of the foyer, the two sisters meet. The aunt is a spare, gaunt woman with a face carved out of granite. Tough, embittered, deeply hurt typeface. The aunt. Hey, what are you doing here? The mother. I came to see you. The two sisters quickly embrace and release each other. How you feel? The aunt. I got a pain in my left side and my leg like a drum. The mother. I've been getting pains in my shoulder. The aunt. I got pains in my shoulder too. I have a pain in my hip and my right arm aches so much I can't sleep. It's a curse to be old. How you feel? The mother. I feel fine. The aunt. That's nice. Now that the standard greetings are over, Aunt Catherine abruptly turns and goes back to her chair. It is obviously her chair. It is an old, heavy oaken chair with thick armrests. The rest of the apartment is furnished in what is known as modern, a piece from House Beautiful here, a piece from Better Homes and Gardens there. Aunt Catherine sits erect and forbidding in her chair. The mother seats herself with a sigh in a neighboring chair. Virginia, having hung the mother's coat, now turns to the two older women. A pause. Virginia. I'm going downstairs to Cappuccini's. I'll be up in a little while. Aunt Catherine nods expressionlessly. Virginia looks at her for a moment, then impulsively crosses to her mother-in-law. Virginia. You feel all right? The old lady looks up warily, suspicious of the sudden solicitude. The aunt. I'm all right. Virginia nods and goes off to the foyer. The two old sisters sit, unmoving, waiting for the door to close behind Virginia. Then the mother addresses herself to Aunt Catherine. The mother. We got a postcard from my son Nicky and his bride this morning. They're in Florida in a big hotel. Everything is very nice. The aunt. That's nice. The mother. Catherine, I want you to come live with me in my house with Marty and me. In my house, you have your own room. You don't have to sleep on a couch in a living room like here. The aunt looks slowly and directly at the mother. Catherine, your son is married. He got his own home. Leave him in peace. He wants to be alone with his wife. They don't want no old ladies sitting in a balcony. Come and live with me. We will cook in the kitchen and talk like when we were girls. You are dear to me, and you are dear to Marty. We are pleased for you to come. The aunt. Did they come to see you? The mother. Yes. The aunt. Did my son Thomas come with her? The mother. Your son Thomas was there. The aunt. Did he also say he wishes to cast his mother from his house? The mother. Catherine, don't make an opera out of this. The three of you and a baby live in 3 skinny rooms. You are an old goat and she has an Italian temper. She is a good girl, but you drive her crazy. Leave them alone. They have their own life. The old aunt turns her head slowly and looks her sister square in the face. Then she rises slowly from her chair. The aunt coldly. Get out of here. This is my son's house. This is where I live. I am not to be cast out in a street like a newspaper. The mother likewise rises. The two old women face each other directly. The mother. Catherine, you are very dear to me. We have cried many times together. When my husband died, I would have gone insane if it were not for you. I ask you to come to my house because I can make you happy. Please come to my house. The two sisters regard each other. Then Aunt Catherine sits again in her oaken chair, and the mother returns to her seat. The hardened muscles in the old aunt's face suddenly slacken, and she turns to her sister. The aunt. Teresa, what shall become of me? The mother. Catherine, the aunt. It's going to happen to you. Mark it well. These terrible years, I'm afraid to look in the mirror. I'm afraid I'm going to see an old lady with white hair like the old ladies in a park. Little bundles in a black shawl waiting for the coffin. I'm 56 years old. What am I to do with myself? I have strength in my hands. I want to cook. I want to clean. I want to make dinner for my children. I want to be of use to somebody. Am I an old dog to lie in front of the fire till my eyes close? These are terrible years, Teresa, terrible years. The mother. Catherine, my sister. The old aunt stares, distraught, at the mother. The aunt. It's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to you. What will you do when Marty gets married? If Marty gets married? What will you cook? What happened to all the children tumbling in all the rooms? Where's the noise? It is a curse to be a widow, a curse. What will you do if Marty gets married? What will you do? She stares at the mother, her deep, gaunt eyes haggard and pained. The mother stares back for a moment, then her eyes close. The aunt has hit home. The aunt sinks back onto her chair, sitting stiffly, her arms on the thick armrests. The mother sits hunched a little forward, her hands nervously folded in her lap. The aunt, quietly. I will put my clothes in a bag and I will come to you tomorrow. The camera slowly dollies back from the two somber sisters. Slow fade out. Cut to, close up, intimate. Marty and the girl dancing cheek to cheek. Occasionally, the heads of other couples slowly waft across the camera view, temporarily blocking our view of Marty and the girl. Camera stays with them as the slow dance carries them around the floor. Tender scene. The girl. The last time I was here, the same sort of thing happened. Marty. Yeah? The girl. Well, not exactly the same thing. The last time I was up here was about 4 months ago. Do you see that girl in the gray dress sitting over there? Marty. Yeah? The girl. That's where I sat. I sat there for an hour and a half without moving a muscle. Now and then, some fellow would sort of walk up to me and then change his mind. I just sat there, hands in my lap. Well, about 10 o'clock, a bunch of kids came in swaggering. They weren't more than 17, 18 years old. Well, they swaggered down along the wall, leering at all the girls. I thought they were kind of cute. And as they passed me, I smiled at them. One of the kids looked at me and said, "Forget it, ugly. You ain't got a chance." I burst out crying. I'm a big crier, you know. Marty. So am I. The girl. And another time, when I was in college, Marty. I cry all the time. Any little thing. I can recognize pain a mile away. My brothers, my brother-in-laws, they're always telling me what a good-hearted guy I am. Well, you don't get good-hearted by accident. You get kicked around long enough, you get to be a real professor of pain. I know exactly how you feel. And I also want you to know I'm having a very good time with you now and really enjoying myself. So you see, you're not such a dog as you think you are. The girl. I'm having a very good time too. Marty. So there you are. So I'm not such a dog as I think I am. The girl. You're a very nice guy, and I don't know why some girl hasn't grabbed you off long ago. Marty. I don't know either. I think I'm a very nice guy. I also think I'm a pretty smart guy in my own way. The girl. I think you are. Marty. I tell ya, some of my wisdom which I thunk up on those nights when I got stood up and nights like that, and you walk home thinking, what's the matter with me? I can't be that ugly. Well, I figure two people get married and they gotta live together 40, 50 years. So it's just gotta be more than whether they're good looking or not. My father was a real ugly man, but my mother adored him. She told me that she used to get so miserable sometimes, like everybody, you know? And she says my father always tried to understand. And I used to see them sometimes when I was a kid sitting in the living room, talking. And I used to adore my old man because he was so kind. That's one of the most beautiful things I have in my life. The way my father and my mother were. And my father was a real ugly man. So it don't matter if you look like a gorilla. So you see, dogs like us, we ain't such dogs as we think we are. They danced silently for a moment, cheeks pressed against each other. Close-ups of each face. The girl. I'm 29 years old. How old are you? Marty. 36. They dance silently, closely. Occasionally the heads of other couples sway in front of the camera, blocking our view of Marty and the girl. Slow, sweet dissolve. Dissolve to interior kitchen, Marty's home. Later that night. It is dark. Nobody is home. The rear porch door now opens and the silhouette of Marty and the girl appear, blocking up the doorway. Marty. Wait a minute. Let me find the light. He finds the light. The kitchen is suddenly brightly lit. The two of them stand squinting to adjust to the sudden glare. Marty. I guess my mother ain't home yet. I figure my cousin Thomas and Virginia must have gone to the movies, so they won't get back till 1 o'clock at least. The girl has advanced into the kitchen, a little ill at ease, and is looking around. Marty closes the porch door. Marty. This is the kitchen. The girl. Yes, I know. Marty leads the way into the dining room. Marty. Come on in a dining room. He turns on the light in there as he goes. The girl follows him in. Sit down, take off your coat. You want something to eat? We got a whole half a chicken left over from yesterday. The girl perching tentatively on the edge of the chair. No, thank you. I don't think I should stay very long. Marty. Sure. Just take off your coat a minute. He helps her off with her coat and stands for a moment looking down at her. Conscious of his scrutiny, she sits uncomfortably, her breasts rising and falling unevenly. Marty takes her coat into the dark living room. The girl sits patiently, nervously. Marty comes back, sits down on another chair. Awkward silence. Marty, so I was telling you, my kid brother Nicky got married last Sunday. That was a very nice affair. And they had this statue of some woman, and they had whiskey spouting out of her mouth. I never saw anything so grand in my life. The silence falls between them again. And what a meal. I'm a butcher, so I know a good hunk of steak when I see one. That was choice filet, right off of the top of the chuck. $1.80 a pound. Of course, if you want a cheaper cut, get a rib steak. That got a lot of waste on it, but it comes to about $1.25 a pound if it's trimmed. Listen, Clara, make yourself comfortable. You're all tense. The girl. Oh, I'm fine. Marty. You want me to take you home? I'll take you home. The girl. Maybe that would be a good idea. She stands. He stands, frowning, a little angry, turns sullenly and goes back into the living room for her coat. She stands unhappily. He comes back and wordlessly starts to help her into her coat. He stands behind her, his hands on her shoulders. She suddenly seizes her and begins kissing her on the neck. Camera comes up quickly to intensely intimate close-up, nothing but the heads. The dialogue drops to quick, hushed whispers. The girl. No, Marty, please. Marty, I like you. I like you. I've been telling you all night I like you. The girl. Marty, I just want a kiss, that's all. He tries to turn her face to him. She resists. The girl. No. Marty, please. The girl. No. Marty, please. The girl. Marty. He suddenly releases her, turns away violently. Marty, crying out. All right, I'll take you home. All right. He marches a few angry paces away, deeply disturbed. Turns to her. All I wanted was a lousy kiss. What am I, a leper or something? He turns and goes off into the living room to hide the flush of hot tears threatening to fill his eyes. The girl stands, herself on the verge of tears. The girl mutters more to herself than to him. I just didn't feel like it. That's all. She moves slowly to the archway leading to the living room. Marty is sitting on the couch, hands in his lap, looking straight ahead. The room is dark except for the overcast of the dining room light reaching in. The girl goes to the couch, perches on the edge beside him. He doesn't look at her. Marty. Well, that's the history of my life. I'm a little short, fat, ugly guy. Comes New Year's Eve, everybody starts arranging parties. I'm the guy they gotta dig up a date for. I'm old enough to know better. Let me get a pack of cigarettes and I'll take you home. He starts to rise, but doesn't. Sinks back onto the couch, looking straight ahead. The girl looks at him, her face peculiarly soft and compassionate. The girl. I'd like to see you again. Very much. The reason I didn't let you kiss me was because I just didn't know how to handle the situation. You're the kindest man I ever met. The reason I tell you this is because I want to see you again. Very much. Maybe I'm just so desperate to fall in love that I'm trying too hard. But I know that when you take me home, I'm just going to lie on my bed and think about you. I want very much to see you again. Marty stares down at his hands in his lap. Marty, without looking at her. What are you doing tomorrow night? The girl. Nothing. Marty, I'll call you up tomorrow morning. Maybe we'll go see a movie. The girl. I'd like that very much. Marty. The reason I can't be definite about it now is my Aunt Catherine is probably coming over tomorrow and I may have to help out. The girl. I'll wait for your call. Marty. We better get started to your house because the buses only run about 1 hour now. The girl. All right. She stands. Marty. I'll just get a pack of cigarettes. He goes into his bedroom. We can see him through the doorway of the bureau drawer and extracting a pack of cigarettes. He comes out again and looks at the girl for the first time. They start to walk to the dining room. In the archway, Marty pauses, turns to the girl. Marty. What are you doing New Year's Eve? The girl. Nothing. They quietly slip into each other's arms and kiss. Slowly their faces part and Marty's head sinks down upon her shoulder. He is crying. His shoulders shake slightly. The girl presses her cheek against the back of his head. They stand. There is the sound of the rear porch door being unlatched. They both start from their embrace. A moment later, the mother's voice is heard off in the kitchen. The mother. Hello? Hello, Marty? She comes into the dining room, stops at the sight of the girl. Hello, Marty, when you come home? Marty, we just got here about 15 minutes ago, Ma. Ma, I want you to meet Miss Clara Davis. She's a graduate of New York University. She teaches history in Benjamin Franklin High School. This seems to impress the mother. The mother. Sit down, sit down. You want some chicken? We got some chicken in the icebox. The girl. No, Mrs. Paletti, we were just going home. Thank you very much, anyway. The mother. Well, sit down a minute. I just come in the house. I'll take off my coat. Sit down a minute. She pulls her coat off. Marty. How'd you come home, Ma? Thomas give you a ride? The mother nods. The mother. Oh, it's a sad business, a sad business. She sits down on a dining room chair, holding her coat in her lap. She turns to the girl, who likewise sits. My sister Catherine. She don't get along with her daughter-in-law, so she's going to come live with us. Marty. Oh, she's coming, eh, Ma? The mother. Oh, sure. To the girl. It's a very sad thing. A woman, 56 years old, all her life she had her own home. Now she's just an old lady sleeping on her daughter-in-law's couch. It's a curse to be a mother, I tell you. Your children grow up, and then what is left for you to do? What is a mother's life but her children? It is a very cruel thing when your son has no place for you in his home. The girl. Couldn't she find some sort of hobby to fill out her time? The mother. Hobby? What can she do? She cooks and she cleans. You gotta have a house to clean. You gotta have children to cook for. These are the terrible years for a woman, the terrible years. The girl. You mustn't feel too harshly against her daughter-in-law. She also wants to have a house to clean and a family to cook for. The mother darts a quick, sharp look at the girl, then looks back to her hands, which are beginning to twist nervously. The mother. You don't think my sister Catherine should live with her... You don't think my sister Catherine should live in her daughter-in-law's house? The girl. Well, I don't know the people, of course, but as a rule, I don't think a mother-in-law should live with a young couple. The mother. Where do you think a mother-in-law should go? The girl. I don't think a mother should depend so much upon her children for her rewards in life. The mother. That's what it says in the book in New York University. You wait till you are a mother. It don't work out that way. The girl. Well, it's silly for me to argue about it. I don't know the people involved. Marty. Ma, I'm going to take her home now. It's getting late and the buses only run about one an hour. The mother, standing. Sure. The girl stands. The girl. It was very nice meeting you, Mrs. Paletti. I hope I'll see you again. The mother. Sure. Marty and the girl move to the kitchen. Marty. All right, Ma, I'll be back in about an hour. The mother. Sure. The girl. Good night, Mrs. Paletti. The mother. Good night. Marty and the girl exit into the kitchen. The mother stands, expressionless by her chair, watching them go. She remains standing rigidly even after the porch door can be heard being opened and shut. The camera moves up to a close-up of the mother. Her eyes are wide. She is staring straight ahead. There is fear in her eyes. Fade out. Act 3. Fade in. Film. Close-up of church bells clanging away. Pan down church to see typical Sunday morning. People going up the steps of a church and entering. It is a beautiful June morning. Dissolve to interior, Marty's bedroom. Sun fairly streaming through the curtains. Marty is standing in front of his bureau, slipping his arms into a clean white shirt. He is freshly shaved and groomed. Through the doorway of his bedroom, we can see the mother in the dining room, in coat and hat, all set to go to Mass, taking the last breakfast plates away and carrying them into the kitchen. The camera moves across the living room into the dining room. The mother comes out of the kitchen with a paper napkin and begins crumbing the table. There is a knock on the rear porch door. The mother leaves her crumbing and goes into the kitchen. Camera goes with her. She opens the rear door to admit Aunt Catherine, holding a worn old European carpet bag. The aunt starts to go deeper into the kitchen, but the mother stays with her with her hand. The mother, in a low, conspiratorial voice. Hey, I come home from your house last night. Marty was here with a girl. The aunt. Who? The mother. Marty. The aunt. Your son, Marty? The mother. Well, what Marty do you think is gonna be here in this house with a girl? The aunt. Were the lights on? The mother. Oh, sure. Frowns suddenly at her sister. The girl is a college graduate. The aunt. They're the worst. College girls are one step from the streets. They smoke like a saloon. The aunt puts her carpet bag down and sits on one of the wooden kitchen chairs. The mother sits on another. The mother. That's the first time Marty ever brought a girl to this house. She seems like a nice girl. I think he has a feeling for this girl. At this moment, a burst of spirited whistling emanates from Marty's bedroom. Cut to Marty's bedroom. Marty standing in front of his mirror, buttoning his shirt or adjusting his tie, whistling a gay tune. Cut back to the two sisters, both their faces turned in the direction of the whistling. The whistling abruptly stops. The two sisters look at each other. The aunt shrugs. The mother. He'd been whistling like that all morning. The aunt nods bleakly. The aunt. He is bewitched. You will see. Today, tomorrow, in a week, he's going to say to you, Hey, Ma, it's no good being a single man. I'm tired running around. Then he's going to say, Hey, Ma, what do we need this old house? Why don't we sell this old house, move into a nicer part of town, a nice little apartment? The mother. I don't sell this house, I tell you that. This is my husband's house, and I had 6 children in this house. The aunt. You will see. A couple of months, you're going to be an old lady sleeping on a couch in your daughter-in-law's house. The mother. Catherine, you are a blanket of gloom. Wherever you go, the rain follows. Someday you're going to smile and we're going to declare a holiday. Another burst of spirited whistling comes from Marty. Off. It comes closer, and Marty now enters in splendid spirits, whistling away. He is slipping into his jacket. Marty, ebulliently. Hello, Aunt Catherine. How are you? You going to Mass with us? The aunt. I was at Mass 2 hours ago. Marty. Well, make yourself at home. The refrigerator is loaded with food. Go upstairs, take any room you want. It's beautiful outside, isn't it? Ain't it? The aunt. There's a chill. Watch out you catch a good cold and pneumonia. The mother. My sister Catherine, she can't even admit it's a beautiful day. Marty, now at the sink, getting himself a glass of water, is examining a piece of plaster that has fallen from the ceiling. Marty, examining the chunk of plaster in his palm. Boy, this place is really coming to pieces. Turns to mother. You know, Ma, I think sometime we ought to sell this place. The plumbing is rusty, everything. I'm going to have to replaster the whole ceiling now. I think we ought to get a little apartment somewheres in a nicer part of town. You all set, Ma? The mother. I'm all set. She starts for the porch door. She slowly turns and looks at Marty and then at Aunt Catherine, who returns her look. Mother and Marty exit. Dissolve to church. The mother comes out of the doors and down a few steps to where Marty is standing, enjoying the clearness of the June morning. The mother. In a couple of minutes, 9 o'clock Mass is going to start. In a couple of minutes, the passers-by off. Hello. Hello. To Marty. Well, that was a nice girl last night, Marty. That was a nice girl. Marty. Yeah. The mother. She wasn't a very good-looking girl, but she looked like a nice girl. I said she wasn't a very good-looking girl, not very pretty. Marty. I heard you, Ma. The mother. She look a little old for you. About 35, 40 years old? Marty. She's 29, Ma. The mother. She's more than 29 years old, Marty. That's what she tells you. She looks 35, 40. She didn't look Italian to me. I said, is she an Italian girl? Marty. I don't know. I don't think so. The mother. She don't look like Italian to me. What kind of family she come from? There was something about her I don't like. It seems funny. The first time you meet her, she comes to your empty house alone. These college girls, they all one step from the streets. Marty turns, frowning, to his mother. Marty. What are you talking about? She's a nice girl. The mother. I don't like her. Marty. You don't like her. You only met her for 2 minutes. The mother. Don't bring her to the house no more. Marty. What didn't you like about her? The mother. I don't know. She don't look like Italian to me. Plenty nice Italian girls around. Marty. Well, let's not get into a fight about it, Ma. I just met the girl. I probably won't see her again. Marty leaves frame. The mother. I'm no better than my sister Catherine. Dissolve to interior, the bar, about an hour later. The aftermath crowd is there, about 6 men ranging from 20 to 40. A couple of women in the booths. One woman is holding a glass of beer in one hand and is gently rocking a baby carriage with the other. Booth of Act 1 are Angie and 3 other fellows, ages 20, 32, and 40. One of the fellows, aged 32, is giving a critical resume of a recent work of literature by Mickey Spillane. The critic. So the whole book winds up. Mike Hammer. He's in a room there with this doll. So he says, "You rat, you are the murderer." So she begins to con him, you know? She tells him how she loves him, and then bam! He shoots her in the stomach. So she's laying there, gasping for breath, and she says, How could you do that? And he says, it was easy. The 29-year-old, the 20-year-old. Boy, that Mickey Spillane, boy, he can write. Angie, leaning out of the booth and looking down the length of the bar, says with some irritation, "What's keeping Marty?" The critic. What I like about Mickey Spillane is he knows how to handle women. In one book, he picks up a tomato who gets hit with a car and she throws a pass at him. And then he meets 2 beautiful twins and they throw passes at him. And then he meets some beautiful society leader and she throws a pass at him. And the 20-year-old. Boy, that Mickey Spillane, he sure can write. Angie, looking out down the bar again. I don't know what's the matter with Marty. The 40-year-old. Boy, Angie, what would you do if Marty ever died? You'd die right with him. A couple of old bachelors hanging onto each other like barnacles. There's Marty now. Angie leans out of the booth. Angie, calling out. Hello, Marty, where you been? Cut to front end of the bar. Marty has just come in. He waves back to Angie, acknowledges another hello from a man by the bar, goes over to the bar and gets the bartender's attention. Marty. Hello, Lou. Give me change of a half and put a dime in it for a telephone call. The bartender takes the $50, reaches into his apron pocket for the change. The bartender. I hear you was at the Waverly Ballroom last night. Marty. Yeah? Angie tell you? The bartender, picking out change from palm full of silver. Yeah, I hear you really got stuck with a dog. Marty looks at him. Marty. She wasn't so bad. The bartender, extending the change. Angie said she was a real scrawny-looking thing. Well, you can't have good luck all the time. Marty takes the change slowly and frowns down at it. He moves down the bar and would make for the telephone booth, but Angie hails him from the booth. Angie. Who you gonna call, Marty? Marty. I was gonna call that girl from last night. Take her to a movie tonight. Angie. Are you kidding? Marty. She was a nice girl. I kind of liked her. Angie. Indicating the spot in the booth vacated by the 40-year-old. Sit down. You can call her later. Marty pauses. frowning, and then shuffles to the booth where Angie and the other two sit. The critic moves over for Marty. There is an exchange of hellos. The 20-year-old. I got a girl. She's always asking me to marry her. So I look at that face and I say to myself, can I stand looking at that face for the rest of my life? The critic. Hey, Marty, you ever read a book called I, the Jury by Mickey Spillane? Marty. No. Angie. Listen, Marty, I got a good place for us to go tonight. The kid here, he says he was down a bazaar at Our Lady of Angels last night and... Marty. I don't feel like going to the bazaar, Angie. I thought I'd take this girl to a movie. Angie. Boy, you really must have made out good last night. Marty. We just talked. Angie. Boy, she must be some talker. She must have been about 50 years old. The critic. I always figure a guy ought to marry a girl who's 20 years younger than he is, so that when he's 40, his wife is a real nice-looking doll. The 20-year-old. That means he'd have to marry the girl when she was 1 year old. The critic. I never thought of that. Marty. I didn't think she was so bad looking. Angie. She must have kept you in the shadows all night. The critic. Marty, you don't want to hang around with dogs. It gives you a bad reputation. Angie. Marty, let's go down a bazaar. Marty. I told this dog I was going to call her today. Angie. Brush her. Marty looks questioningly at Angie. Marty. You didn't like her at all? Angie. A nothing. A real nothing. Marty looks down at the dime he has been nervously turning between two fingers, and then, frowning, he slips it into his jacket pocket. He lowers his face and looks down, scowling at his thoughts. Around him, the voices clip along. The critic. What's playing on Fordham Road? I think there's a good picture in Lowe's Paradise. Angie. Let's go down to 42nd Street and walk around. We're sure to wind up with something. Slowly, Marty begins to look up again. He looks from face to face as each speaks. The critic. I'll never forgive LaGuardia for cutting burlesque out of New York City. The 20-year-old. There's burlesque over in Union City. Let's go to Union City. Angie. They're always crowded on Sunday night. The critic. So what do you figure on doing tonight, Angie? Angie. I don't know. What do you figure on doing? The critic. I don't know. Turns to the 20-year-old. What do you figure on doing? The 20-year-old shrugs. Suddenly, Marty brings his fist down on the table with a crash. The others turn, startled toward him. Marty rises in his seat. Marty. What are you doing tonight? I don't know. What are you doing? Burlesque. Lowe's Paradise. Miserable and lonely. Miserable and lonely and stupid. What am I, crazy or something? I got something good. What am I hanging around with you guys for? He has said this in tones so loud that it attracts the attention of everyone in the bar. A little embarrassed, Marty turns and moves quickly to the phone booth, pausing outside the door to find his dime again. Angie is out of his seat immediately and hurries after him. Angie, a little shocked at Marty's outburst. What's the matter with you? Marty, in a low, intense voice. You don't like her. My mother don't like her. She's a dog and I'm a fat, ugly little man. All I know is I had a good time last night. I'm going to have a good time tonight. If we have enough good times together, I'm going to get down on my knees and beg that girl to marry me. If we make a party again this New Year's, I got a date for the party. You don't like her? That's too bad. He moves into the booth, sits, turns again to Angie, smiles. When are you going to get married, Angie? You're 34 years old. All your kid brothers are married. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Still smiling at his private joke, he puts the dime into the slot, and then, with a determined finger, he begins to dial. Fade out. The end. Marty. Two choices of material. Marty and the mother are bundled together in one discussion because each represents in its own way the sort of material that does best on television. They both deal with the world of the mundane, the ordinary, and the untheatrical. The main characters are typical rather than exceptional. The situations are easily identifiable by the audience, and the relationships are as common as people. The essence of these two shows lies in their literal reality. I tried to write the dialogue as if it had been wiretapped. I tried to envision the scenes as if the camera had been focused upon the unsuspecting characters and had caught them in an untouched moment of life. This sort of meticulous literalness is something that can be done in no other medium. On the stage, reality is a highly synthesized thing. The closest thing to reality I ever saw on the stage was in Death of a Salesman. But even this extraordinary play involved a suicide and an incident in which the son discovers his father in a hotel room with a woman other than his mother. These are excellent dramatic incidents, but they are not everyday occurrences in the life of the lower middle class. In writing the stage play, it is necessary to contrive exciting moments of theater. You may write about ordinary people, but the audience sees them in unordinary and untypical circumstances. To a lesser degree, this is also true of the movies, especially American movies. The Bicycle Thief, an Italian masterpiece, got about as close to an ordinary day in an unemployed man's life as you can get in a movie. But even this picture required a special urgency of incident. Most movies, even the good ones, are based upon the extraordinary incident and the exceptional character. In television, however, the same insights into a character or into a social milieu can be made with the most identifiable characters in the most commonplace situations. I set out in Marty to write a love story, the most ordinary love story in the world. I didn't want my hero to be handsome, and I didn't want the girl to be pretty. I wanted to write a love story the way it would literally have happened to the kind of people I know. I was, in fact, determined to shatter the shallow and destructive illusions prospered by cheap fiction and bad movies. That love is simply a matter of physical attraction, that virility is manifested by a throbbing phallus, and that regular orgasms are all that's needed to make a woman happy. These values are dominant in our way of life and need to be examined for what they are. Certainly, I and everybody I know have at least once in our lives brushed off a girl we rather liked because our friends thought she was unattractive. In Marty, I ventured lightly into such values as the Oedipal relationship, the reversion to adolescence by many normal Americans, and the latent homosexuality of the middle class. I did not make a purposeful study of these values. I only mention them to show that as quiet as a television play may be, it need not yield anything in depth. An excellent story could be written about the latent homosexuality in the normal American male, and a television would be the only medium I know of that could present the problem as it really exists. On the stage, the incidents would have to be so definitized that the main character would not be a normal fellow. There are two plays on Broadway now, 1954, dealing with homosexuality in one way or another. The first deals with a girl who married a homosexual. The second deals with an incident of alleged homosexuality in a boys' school. In both cases, the circumstances are exceptional, and the main characters are not people that most of us know in our circle of friends. The homosexuality that television would explore would be one not of flagrant starkness, but of the hidden, sometimes terrifying impulses deep within all of us. Most American men have decided homosexual impulses. The dramatic writer hardly needs Kinsey to prove that. We are, for the most part, an adolescent people, and adolescence is a semi-homosexual stage in which the boys hang around together, feeling more comfortable among their own sex than with girls. Most of us grow older but never quite shake off our adolescent behavior patterns. Latent homosexuality is perfectly normal, but so much stigma is attached to it that it provokes fears and anxieties, guilt and depressions. It would be difficult to get most Americans to admit they have these impulses. Indeed, most Americans hide from the thought of them. The man who proudly proclaims how virile he is could very well be a man who is so unsure of his virility that he needs to reestablish it over and over again. The married man who chases other women might well be doing this to confirm his manliness in his own mind. He is probably being driven by a fear of homosexuality as it has manifested itself in his lack of desire for his wife, or even in more positive homosexual actions. This man would perhaps be revolted by the idea of making love to another man. He probably jokes about pansies and faggots as most of us do. He has a wife and 3 children. He likes to look at pictures of semi-dressed women. He is, in fact, a perfectly normal fellow except for the fact that he has to drive himself to make love to his wife. As bedtime approaches, he becomes more and more anxious, frightened of the demands his wife may make upon him, even more frightened that he will not be able to satisfy her demands. The fact that he does not have to satisfy her demands never enters his mind, for he is governed by a set of social values which tell him that virility is measured in orgasms. Rather than admit his inadequacy in the face of these impossible values, he blames his wife. My wife is a cold woman. A man has to change his oil every now and then. Man is not a monogamous person, etc. In order to keep his sense of virility bolstered, he throws a pass at some other woman. Certainly this is not a study in abnormality. Thousands of married men throw thousands of passes at thousands of other women. It is as much a part of the American scene as honeysuckle. Nothing happens in this story except that a married man throws a pass at some girl. Yet, deep within the framework of that gesture lies a wonderful area of drama and insight. Of course, the writer has to delineate his characters and select his sequence of scenes so that this very normal piece of behavior is clearly understood by the audience. But that's what makes writing. If this story were done on the stage, you would find that the simple throwing of a pass barely makes your first act curtain. You would have to invent much more incisive scenes and incidents. I cannot imagine a stage play on this subject which wouldn't require a scene showing the man ending up with a rank homosexual, so that the dramatic point is made. Or else you would have to write pages of pseudo-psychoanalysis in order to get the point across. The theater audience is so far away from the actual action of the drama. They cannot see the silent reactions of the players. They must be told in a loud voice what is going on. The plot movement from one scene to another must be marked, rather than gently shaded as is required in television. In the end, you would have a play that would interest the audience a good deal, but not to the point where they would say, "My God, that's just like me." Marty, of course, was not intended as a study of homosexuality or even as a study of the Oedipus complex. It was a comment on the social values of our times, and as such, its characters were not probed to the bottom. There is a distinct homosexual relationship between Marty and Angie, but to make anything of it would have been out of perspective. It likewise would have been bad taste to develop Marty's relationship to his mother beyond what was shown. I was only interested in motivating the mother on a social level, that is, as a displaced ex-mother rather than as a woman tied by deep emotional bonds to her son. For one thing, there is nothing abnormal about her attachment to her son. Marty does eventually break away from his mother. This was not a story about the silver cord. In producing Marty, there is something to guard against vigilantly. Most of us are aware of the primitive Freudian explanations of our relationships to each other. The Oedipus complex is hardly an esoteric piece of psychoanalytic jargon. It is a commonly used and understood conversational phrase. Actors, and especially directors, rather imagine they are making astounding dramatic insights when they read such rudimentary psychology into parts. Marty was not intended as a psychological study, and it should not be played that way. It is, of course, sound theater for the actors to know how they relate to the other actors of the script, but they must be disciplined from plunging beyond the level of the show. It is important that Marty and his mother be on terms of successful communication, and the actor should not play the profound resentments and antagonisms that are inherent in the Oedipus complex. I must mention at this point that the actor who played Marty, Rod Steiger, is one of the most gifted young actors in the theater, and I owe him a genuine debt of gratitude for all that he contributed to this show. The mother, like Marty, is a good example of proper television material. It tells a story about a familiar character and pursues this small story with relentless literalness to one small synthesized moment of crisis. But what makes The Mother particularly interesting to me is that it has begun to open up for me a whole new area of writing. The most fascinating character in the script is not the mother at all, but the daughter. Here is a study in subconscious guilts and resentments. I had to keep holding myself back from really exploring the daughter's story for fear the rest of my story would be thrown out of perspective. The daughter is a girl who is still trying to buy her mother's love by sacrifice and by playing the role of a dutiful child. Children within a family fight fiercely for their mother's love, and this girl got the short end of the stick. She was obviously an unwanted child to whom the mother gave a grudging, dutiful attention. The girl grew up envious and resentful, fighting with her brother and sister, able only to negotiate with other people on the basis of sacrifice. She has become the sort of girl who is known as a generous, loyal friend, and who is described by everyone as a person who would give you the shirt off her back. For she has learned only this way of gaining people's affection, by sacrificing, by constantly giving of herself. She cooks and cleans and sews for her husband. She does everything for her children, much too much, in fact. Throughout her life, she will serve her mother slavishly, always hoping to be chosen as the favorite child. Under her thick surface of duty, she really resents, even hates, her mother. Her attempts to get her mother to give up her apartment represent subconscious desires to hurt her mother for denying her love. If this strikes you as a quick piece of neo-psychoanalysis, that is just what it is. Nevertheless, it is a pretty rational understanding of this girl, and it can be dramatized. As a kind of dramatic writing, it is unique. Playwrights have never plumbed the subconscious levels of their characters except perhaps in the broadcast and most primitive fashion. In television, you can dig into the most humble, ordinary relationships. The relationships of bourgeois children to their mother, of middle-class husband to wife, of white-collar father to his secretary. In short, the relationships of the people. I do not like to theorize about drama. I suspect the academic writer, the fellow who can precisely articulate his theater. However, it is my current belief that the function of the writer is to give the audience some shred of meaning to the otherwise meaningless patterns of their lives. Our lives are filled with endless moments of stimulus and depression. We relate to each other in an incredibly complicated manner. Every fiber of relationship is worth a dramatic study. There is far more exciting drama in the reasons why a man gets married than in why he murders someone. The man who is unhappy in his job, the wife who thinks of a lover, the girl who wants to get into television, your father, mother, sister, brother, cousins, friends, all these are better subjects for drama than Iago. What makes a man ambitious? Why does one girl always try to steal her kid sister's boyfriends? Why does your uncle attend his annual class reunion faithfully every year? Why do you always find it depressing to visit your father? These are the substances of good television drama. And the deeper you probe into and examine the twisted, semi-formed complexes of emotional entanglements, the more exciting your writing becomes. Television is a strange medium, limited by 1,000 technical problems, hemmed in by taboos and advertising policies, cheapened by this innumerable untalented and officious people you will always find in a billion-dollar industry. Nevertheless, for the writer there is still area for deep and unprobed work. I am just now becoming aware of this area, this marvelous world of the ordinary. This is an age of savage introspection, and television is the dramatic medium through which to expose our new insights into ourselves. The stage is too weighty, and the movies too intense to deal with the mundane and all its obscured ramifications. More and more, the television writers are turning away from the slapdish activity of the violence shows and turning to the needle-like perception of human relationships. Television need not be a demanding sequence of panel shows and horror, of cooking classes and family situation comedies. You can write honest, dramatic literature for television, rewarding to your sense of pride. Certainly there were 4 or 5 hour shows last year that were far and away superior to anything on the current Broadway stage or anything issued by the movie industry. Perhaps they might even start paying the television writer a decent wage for his work.